We have additional evidence of ActBlue detecting at least 22 significant fraud campaigns. 9 of those fraud campaigns had a foreign nexus. After receiving this information, we deposed and interviewed 5 former ActBlue employees. When deposed, ActBlue employees refused to answer a single question. Instead, they invoked the Fifth Amendment 146 times. We gave ActBlue employees an opportunity to answer our questions, but they refused.
That was Wisconsin Republican U.S. Representative Brian Steele opening up a congressional hearing last month about the political fundraising operation ActBlue. The organization's facing more scrutiny after recent reports raised questions about thousands of political donations made in the name of an 88-year-old Michigan woman. Joining us to discuss this further is the Center Square reporter, Elise Apel. Elise, who is Elizabeth Waffle, and did she really donate more than $150,000 over 5 years?
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for having me on. That's the real question. So Elizabeth Waffle is an 88-year-old woman that lives in a small town, remote town in Michigan. She's actually currently living in a RV trailer because her house burned down 2 years ago. So this all came to light because of a Michigan Enjoyer reporter that went out and interviewed Elizabeth Waffle, because according to their numbers, she's given more than $150,000 via ActBlue. So that's the Democrats' kind of fundraising platform where they get money from especially smaller donors. And they fundraise nationally for Democrat candidates or progressive organizations. So the Michigan Enjoyer, according to their reporting, reported that she made almost 15,000 donations over the past 5 years, and totaling more than $150,000. Now, when I pulled the numbers myself, I looked at numbers more along the lines of 100,000. And range with donations about 12,900 donations coming from a woman named Elizabeth Waffle, and that's according to Federal Election Commission records. So definitely some numbers that were really interesting from a woman that doesn't own a computer. Kind of in this video that went viral over the weekend, they show her trying to fill out the ActBlue form, and her Wi-Fi is really spotty. So just lots of questions around, did this woman really give this money? And no one really knows.
Again, you're delving into Federal Election Commission records to find donations allegedly made by Elizabeth Waffle. 12,900 donations is what you were able to confirm. That's a lot of donations.
It's a lot of donations over the past 5 years. So that's multiple donations per day.
And what's the range there? I mean, is it pennies to several dollars? I mean, how much are we talking?
No. So it's 24 cents to $107.50. So it really is kind of these smaller donations, lots of $5, $10 donations, just over and over again, every day, every month, for the past 5 years.
So what's going on here? If she says she didn't make these donations, I mean, her house just burned down. She's living in a trailer. She's 88 years old. I would imagine if she had $100,000, she'd probably rather use that to live. If she's not giving that money, what's going on here?
Yeah, so that was the interesting thing with the video. She never outright came and said that she did not make those donations. She said things along the lines of, I doubt it, I can't believe I did something like this, I don't have that kind of money. So that was the really interesting thing. And she actually did admit to giving money to ActBlue fairly regularly to different candidates. But she seemed to have no idea that it was in these kind of massive totals. And we had the chance to talk to ActBlue. They sent us a statement, the Center Square statement. And so we were able to talk to their external communications director, and she told us that ActBlue has reviewed all relevant contribution data, and our customer service team has already reached out to the donor for more information. It is standard operating procedure that we take corrective action when a non-compliant donation is identified, which may include but is not limited to blocking accounts from further contributions, issuing requested refunds to users, and reporting any fraudulent activity to the appropriate authorities. So basically, they made no statement about whether or not, Waffle's contributions were fraudulent, but did say that they were going to be talking to her.
It's interesting you got that statement from ActBlue. Being a media organization, we reach out to these groups that we end up writing about, and they're not under oath, right? They can send you any statement they want. But when ActBlue was under oath in front of the U.S. House answering questions from Republican U.S. Representative Brian Steele, here's how that went.
After you sent me the 2023 letter, ActBlue weakened its fraud prevention rules twice in 2024. Quote, even after internal assessments confirmed that these policy changes would lead to more fraudulent donations, end quote. Did you weaken fraud prevention standards to increase donations on the ActBlue platform?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
So again, you got a statement from ActBlue, but you also tuned into that hearing last month. How many times did they give that Fifth Amendment response?
Dozens of times. They basically refused to answer almost any questions about this issue. So this is really, this is the big question for Republicans. What really is going on at ActBlue? And when they refuse to answer questions, it's hard to tell.
Now, this question may come out of left field for some people, but when we're talking about these questionable donations, this term comes up, and it's kind of an interesting one, smurfing. What is smurfing in the context of political donations?
Yeah, so in my reporting on this story, I was able to talk to Parker Thayer, who's an investigative researcher with the conservative nonprofit Capital Research Center, who they've been able to do a lot of different research into ActBlue. They've conducted multiple investigations. And something that Thayer talked about was this term called smurfing. And basically kind of the idea behind it is that on the FEC database, you basically have all the information to be able to give in that person's name. So they publish, when you go in to give money, say on ActBlue, all you need to know is an address, an employer, a name, and that is all just public information on the FEC website. So this term called smurfing is one where basically people allege that basically foreign money or larger donors are going into the FEC website and giving money fraudulently via these people's names that are just publicly available on the FEC website. Thayer said that maybe this case of the Michigan woman could be an example of smurfing, but obviously, there's no real proof of that. But he just flagged that this is a real issue that they've been trying to raise red flags about for a while.
And you can see that with the case of Elizabeth Waffle, she says she has given to ActBlue in the past, doesn't think that she's given $150,000. How much exactly is legitimate? These are questions that they're trying to get to, even in the halls of Congress, not just there in Michigan, Elise. But finally here, last month, you've got during that congressional hearing, Texas Democratic U.S. Representative Julie Johnson critical of the hearing, being led by the Republican majority, questioning why the focus didn't include other organizations like Republicans Win Red. Here's her criticism.
Now they're trying to go after the money of Democratic small donors, the little mom and pops, the little teachers who send their $25 a month in to elect the candidates of their choice because they're terrified that they're going to lose in November. So my comment to the American people is vote, contribute through ActBlue, send money to your Democratic candidates, make sure that Democrats win in November so we can stop this nonsense once and for all.
Well, Elise, interesting question she raises. Are there similar concerns about Republican-led fundraising organizations?
Yeah, and this was what Thayer told me, is that it could be very probable that WinRed has very similar problems to ActBlue. Now, the interesting thing with WinRed is it doesn't seem to just be as pushed out there as ActBlue. ActBlue, probably most people on the street, if you asked what ActBlue is, would be able to somewhat identify, that's how the Democrats make money. WinRed, I don't think most people know much about WinRed, and it doesn't seem to be a very effective fundraising tool for Republicans. So it seems like they could have some of the same issues, but it's just not as large scale as really ActBlue is.
Well, Elise, we'll be watching this closely, of course, because it is an election year and a pivotal midterm election. Money is going to be a key player in races all across the country, and I think it's important to follow that money. Greatly appreciate your time this morning.